Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Talking Asperger's with Andrew. My name is Andrew Marsh, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about me just to set the scene for why I'm doing this. And then I'll get into some aspects of Asperger's syndrome, which I'd like to talk about today. So I'm 57. I've had a successful career as a geologist for 23 years, all before I knew I had Asperger's syndrome. Although one of the phrases that I use is that I've always known I was different, but I just didn't know why. And getting my diagnosis 6 years ago made such a difference to my life and how I view it and how I understand who I am, what I am. And it's really been the catalyst for just developing myself to a better place than perhaps I was before. So I'd like to start actually by asking if anyone knows. I know Leslie does, but Damien, do you have a knowledge of Asperger's syndrome?
Not before, not only for the last say 5 years since I started looking into it, and I was diagnosed about 2 years ago.
Okay. So it's
I've read a lot, but it's been all in the last 5 years that I have learned about it.
Okay. Well, pretty much the same as me, really. And we'll welcome Laura, who's just joined us. So hello, Laura. Hi, Laura. Just to recap, we are recording, if that's okay. If you don't want to be on the recording, if you could just turn your video off. But it's good to have you here. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to share my screen and I'd like to give a definition of Asperger's syndrome because I think it's a good place to start. So let's see if this all works. There we are. Can you all see that okay?
I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, there we go.
Now, yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Good. So, yes, that's me, Andrew Marsh. I'm a speaker, a coach. I'm very much an Asperger's advocate, which is trying to get a better deal for people with Asperger's, particularly in employment. And I write books as well. And if you want to get in touch with me in any other way, there's my website and my email address. And I won't bore you with any more of that just now. But I want to go over a definition of Asperger's syndrome. And here it is. Asperger's syndrome is an autism spectrum disorder, one of a distinct group of complex neurodevelopment disorders characterized by social impairment, communication difficulties, and restrictive, repetitive, and stereotypical patterns of behavior. Now, I don't know whether you've come across Asperger's definition before, but I don't particularly like that definition for a number of reasons. Firstly, it uses the word disorder twice. And that to me implies there's something wrong with you. And actually, there's an awful lot right with people who have Asperger's syndrome. They have amazing skills, abilities. And as we go on through the weeks, I'm going to be talking more about that in a bit more detail. But it is a spectrum and it's not linear. It's not just from A to B. It's far more complex than that. And I've got this little example here of, here, I don't know if you can see this. This is a kebab skewer. It's got a sharp end and it's got a blunt end. If you imagine this kebab skewer represented one particular trait of Asperger's syndrome and the sharp end was 100% and the blunt end was 0%, and you push that through a grapefruit and that gives you one trait. Imagine if you had 10 or 100 or 1,000 of these kebab skewers poked through your grapefruit. You would get an image that was something like this. That's just a picture I picked up from the internet earlier on today, and that gives you an idea. There's probably about 100 or 200 little spikes sticking out of that flower tip. But if you imagine that every single person who has Asperger's syndrome sits somewhere differently on every single kebab skewer, every single spine on that flower, that gives you an indication to me of the breadth of the spectrum. It's not just A to B, 0 to 100%, and that's it. It's so much more complicated and so much broader than that. And I think that we need to try and explain that to people who don't understand Asperger's syndrome, and particularly employers. And that's one of the themes that I talk about, is talking about Asperger's syndrome to employers, to let them know that there are people out there who have amazing skills You just need to find the right way of communicating with them and getting the best from them. But I like this image because it says to me, it explains it so well. If you imagine everyone sitting at a different place on that flower head there. So I'm gonna stop sharing the screen for a moment and just continue talking. So that's what Asperger's is to me. It's very much a spectrum, and it's so broad ranging that if you took, say, typical traits of someone, whether they were analytical or technical, whether they were good at art or creativity or music, or whether there's all sorts of other things like engineering and design, those sorts of things are ideal skills and attributes that people who have Asperger's syndrome can bring, what they can bring to employers. And so what I would like to just ask Damien and Laura is just to see what does the Asperger's syndrome mean to you, Damien, if you could perhaps in just a few words, if you want to.
Maybe is the manner in which I can concentrate very well on one subject that I'm passionate about and do really well. But my only problem is that I will then go on and on that one subject, and I can bore people about. I sometimes worry about starting to talk about something that I'm really passionate about, because I'm never sure whether someone's interested or whether they're bored with me. In fact, people at work say I go on a bit, but that's normally as soon as I get into work.
I absolutely relate to that 100%, because when I'm doing something that I'm passionate about, I'm absolutely focused on it, railway line focus. And I am just in that moment, in that zone, and that's what I do. And if someone says to me, if you're out and you're meeting people and they say, what do you like doing? I say, well, I like writing books. I write novels as well. And they say, what's it about? They do tend to ask the question, oh, is it like J.K. Rowling? It's just something that people say when you say you write books. But then I will start talking about my books, and I'm passionate about it. So I go on and I go on and I go on, and I'm animated and I'm excited and I'm being all up, high energy about it. And I can't sense the cues from them saying, I'm getting bored with this now, or this person or Andrew's gone on too long. And so I struggle to recognize those kind of social cues. The unwritten rules of communication is one of my big struggles as well, because people don't say what they mean and they don't mean what they say. Perhaps I'll come back to that in a minute. Laura, have you experienced Asperger's syndrome? What's your relationship with it?
I share the same point of view as Damien and you. Like, I can basically keep going and keep doing something over and over. I may even forget to drink or eat, or I may just postpone other stuff because I really want to do that in that very moment.
Yeah.
So, and I get really excited about that. On the other side, sometimes I feel extremely frustrated, because when I didn't like something, I just can't do that. It's totally impossible for me to do that. I have no motivation at all.
Well, I wouldn't say it's imagination. For me, it's just, if you don't
motivation.
Yeah. It's a complete lack of interest. And one of the things that I know that my wife is Leslie, who's on the call, in case you thought that there was a similarity. One of the things I absolutely detest is reality television shows. And she says, oh, I'm going to go and watch Strictly now. And I thought, oh, yeah, good luck, enjoy it, have fun. But it's not for me. It goes beyond not liking. It gets to the point where watching that kind of thing absolutely grates with me, and I just can't watch it. I just really can't watch it.
Before you go down that particular rabbit hole, Strictly is not a reality show.
Well, this is
it. You're bundling, you're putting things together that aren't, and I think that's something that happens with this situation, is that we tend to see that there will be an idea of what something is without actually totally knowing, but it just looks like it. So you immediately go and bundle it all together, which, let's face it, the brain does anyway, because otherwise we would be taking ages to look at things. So I think that's a really interesting, because I didn't know that before.
That's why I can't sit and watch it. I absolutely, when you say to me, let's watch the Bake Off, it's good, and I really do struggle sitting watching. I might find some of it interesting, but the concept of the gladiatorial nature of it just doesn't register with me, and I struggle with that, Leslie. I struggle with that.
Well, you see, I see that as a spectrum. The gladiatorial thing of television at the moment is its own spectrum, and I don't see the competitive style of Strictly or of the Bake Off as gladiatorial, because it's just a competition of people who want to learn to do something or already have got a skill in something. It's not actually making them embarrassed. It's not poking fun at them. It's not examining their inner psyche for anything that's going to, make them look really stupid on television in front of millions of people. That to me is gladiatorial television.
Okay, I can accept that. Yeah.
But and the thing is that I think that what we've got also at Damien and Laura is that, having practiced a lot with Andrew, and I'm still learning, still definitely learning, particularly since the diagnosis, which only happened when you were 55?
51.
51.
6 years ago.
6 years ago, yeah. Sometimes I forget because it's kind of, it melds in there. But it's one of those things that, having noticed certain things, it's amazing how we kind of put them away when we're not on that part of the spectrum. And it's, for me, interesting still to find out that there are still bits that I'm not paying attention to, that I'm not realizing. It's not just, he just doesn't like that. It's not his thing to see people in sparkly bits and doing fleckles or whatever they're called on the dance floor. He's going to go up into his room and do whatever he does there. So that's a wee learning point for me today.
I suppose you're right in terms of they're not. I mean, the reality, the proper reality stuff is there's these what do they call them? These Love Island and Shipwreck.
Yeah, the Big Brother things. Big Brother things. Yeah, people have committed suicide.
Yeah. That just I fail at an absolutely basic comprehension level the purpose of normal everyday people wanting to be on something like that, to do something. And I don't know whether it's just this appetite that certain people have for, I want to be famous, but I don't care how, and this is their route to it. But I just have a comprehension issue with that. It just doesn't seem to compute with me. And on the odd occasion that I have seen the odd bit of Big Brother and other programs like it, I really don't understand it. What's going on with the people?
So I'd like to ask you guys, have you in life, do you find yourselves being termed shy or awkward, or people just don't understand why you wouldn't watch certain programs? They just kind of, really? No? And then just leave you to it. What happens with you? Do people think that you're just very shy and then don't bother working with you anymore?
I feel I should hide it, and that's it. I should hide myself, or try to hide my awkwardness. That's what I think, because I think they wouldn't understand anyway. That's what I think.
I mean, one of the struggles I have is being around people in rooms, whether that's work or a social situation, because I really, what am I supposed to do? If people are in a room and having conversations, one of the things that I was brought up with from my parents was it is rude to interrupt someone when they're having a conversation. So if I walk into a networking event or a social event and there's people there, I don't know what to do. So I feel as though I sort of migrate to the corner and stand in the corner and pretend that hopefully that no one won't notice me at all. But that isn't always necessarily the point of why I'm there. But I do struggle with that. Is that something?
I do as well.
Go on.
When I've had say when I've been studying and then we break for coffee or something and everyone's in one room, and I may try and find someone I can find something interesting I can talk about, and so I'll start and I'll talk, and then when I finish I think to myself, okay, now what? And I sort of gradually go and get another coffee or and think, well, what's the point now? I'd rather get on, get out, get back. But,
yes, it's one of the things I found at meetings at work. They would drone on for ages. Let's cut to the chase, get to the point. Let's get to the point of what we need to have this meeting about, rather than this incidental waffle that people seem interested in talking about all the stuff that's peripheral. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, but meetings can be, for me anyway, they can be difficult because I find it difficult to keep up with what people are saying or what the conversation is, especially when there's more than one person talking. It all goes into one big sort of mess of words for me, and then I lose. I think, well, where are we? And then I'll say something, and it could be 5 minutes late or after the conversation's finished.
Yeah.
So it is difficult, I find, with a group of people to keep up with, to decide when I should talk, when I shouldn't, and to keep up with the conversation. Unless it's something that's between me and one other person within that group, then I can have a really good conversation. But then when other people join in, it can be confusing.
Yeah, I struggle with that. Interruptions I struggle with, and I would be in meetings sometimes, and I find it difficult to read the room in a meeting with all the different people, because they all have agendas. Everyone in a meeting has a different agenda, and whilst you all should be roughly aiming the boat in the same direction, some people aren't steering it and some people aren't paddling, and it's a struggle. But I would be sitting in a meeting and I'd be thinking, why is no one asking this question? So I would ask it, and people would look at me and they go, how the hell did you ask that? Why are you asking that? What's that all about? But sometimes it would actually get to the hub of the situation quite quickly. And a number of times I've been in meetings or after meetings, people have come up to me, particularly my colleagues or my superiors, and say, I'm not sure that was a good idea to say that, Andrew. Why did you say that? I said, well, it seemed obvious to me, so I just said it. And they look at me as if I'm from the planet Zog, which is probably where I'm from anyway, because I've always felt I was different and didn't fit in. And that kind of highlights the difficulties of just being yourself and trying to contribute when you're in those sort of situations.
Can I just ask you guys, what kind of work is it that you do? Are you in like corporations, businesses? Do you work alone?
I work as a technical and production manager for a salad grower. So a lot of my work is by myself, which is good. Teamwork is I try and sort of manage to try and avoid issues. But
I'm a freelance, and I teach Chinese and English and Italian.
Oh, brilliant.
That's
That's an interesting combination. Can you switch hip from one to the other, or do you have to think about it?
No, I don't really have to think about it. Se vuoi posso parlare in italiano, 如果你要的话，我就会说中文了。I can switch, but I haven't been speaking Chinese for a while. I have to say that. I used to live in China before. I was speaking Chinese every day, and now I know it's a bit strange because I haven't been exposed to the language like on a daily basis. So I'm losing it. I really need to be in the context, to be in the environment in order to hear and absorb it, you know? Mm-hmm. It's not like reading in the books or learning from the books. It's very different.
Yeah, you need to hear it. You need to hear the tone. You need to hear the vibration of it. Yeah, I'm like that with French. I need to do that with French. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, is Andrew was a geologist, and he used to spend a lot of time going around places on his own, trekking up and down the highlands and different places, looking for places they could put wind farms onto. But he had another interesting thing that he did, because he used to collect things when he was out doing these things and bring them home with him. So, you know, that was an interesting little foible that happened. Although sometimes it wasn't so little, because there were great rocks that would come into the garage with him.
Yeah, I like rocks. I was a geologist. I studied rocks. I like the look of rocks. I like them, but they have to be a certain shape or a certain texture or a certain way. And it's very difficult to describe that to someone, because they just think you're nuts. You like rocks. But I would collect them, and I would then make things in the garden with them and make ornamental things in the garden with them. But I did perhaps get a little bit carried away when we had about 5 or 6 tons of rocks in the garage. Yeah, okay, I'll admit that.
Yeah, we had a fair facsimile of the Himalayas in the back garden at one point. So, yeah. So, what is it that you guys would like to have? And I know that Andrew is really wanting to ask this. What is it you would like to have out of this endeavour that we're doing just now? What is it that would help you with this situation?
But for me, mainly social interaction at work, and out of work as well, because if I'm with a group of friends, but it can also be difficult to keep up with the conversations. So, and whether there are ways around that might help. Maybe that's a
Okay. We can look at that, certainly. I mean, I'm intending to do this every week, so we can be covering a lot of topics as we go along. So thank you for that. Laura, is there anything particular that you would like to get out of these sessions?
Not really. I'm just happy to be here with you guys and share
sure.
my own experience.
Well, thank you.
I just wanted to meet you and get to know you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well,
thank you.
You're very welcome. We've covered quite a little bit there. I was perhaps going to just open this up to questions if anyone had any questions they wanted to ask me for the next 5 or 10 minutes before we wrap up. So the floor is yours if anyone would like to ask me a question. I'll do my best to answer.
So this is going to be weekly then, is it, for
Yes.
a set period?
It's going to be weekly. Yeah,
good.
we're going to go on every week. This time, 3 o'clock every Wednesday. Yep.
That's great.
Because I want to build an audience, obviously, but I want to be able to help people in their own situations that they find themselves in, share information, and be a bit of a touchstone that people can use to ask me questions about things. And if I don't know the answer straight away, I will get back to you within the week. So, but I want to build a community where we're all helping and supporting each other, just as Laura said there, so that we can help each other and help ourselves and help each other develop and be better at work and be better in interacting with people, and to just try and help those who aren't on the spectrum understand us a little better, so that we can help them help us as well, so that we're all working together towards being a better community.
We may well find that there are people like you, Damien, and Andrew, who are actually on the spectrum but haven't been found yet. They haven't been diagnosed yet. Yes. And so, you know, and I think that when this goes onto the channel, because there will be a channel, won't there, Andrew? Yes, I'm going to create a YouTube channel for it and be posting the video onto that. And I'll be linking the booking mechanism through to LinkedIn. It's to an event on LinkedIn and also to an Eventbrite page. So I'll be developing that this next week as well, so that you can share to anyone that you might think is interested.
Yeah, and then maybe post other questions that we have as we go. That would be good.
Yeah. Particularly when it's on the channel, you'll be able to put comments in there, and Andrew will be able to go through them and perhaps address them on the next part.
Yes. Yeah, indeed.
Session, which I promise I probably won't always be on.
It's good to have you here, Leslie, because well, you've learned something that you didn't know, and
oh, it's true. And I think that could be one of the aspects of this endeavor, is that for people who are in relationships, friends, partners, of people who are on the spectrum, it may well be something that also becomes a support mechanism for them.
Yes.
Because if the more that we get to talk to one another, and Laura, you said it yourself, you try and hide yourself, you go inward, you stop trying to communicate because you're wary of the reactions of people who don't understand what's going on. And however, I'm telling you right now, you have an amazing mind that you can switch in Chinese, you can think, because I know it's hard to do. Because, you know, when you first start out learning languages, etc., when you haven't got quite the talent for it that I think you have, that you have a certain ear and an understanding. And I think that also, Damien, you've got this idea that you have to do things on your own and you can't quite talk to too many people with too many things. And Andrew's been working very hard in networking and listening to people and talking to people, and he's gaining confidence. And I think that that's got a lot to do with it, is gaining the confidence to actually go ahead.
Yeah, and
understanding
it doesn't have to be.
Superpowers.
Yes, it doesn't have to be people on the spectrum. If you know people, friends, colleagues who aren't on the spectrum but just want to know more, then please invite them along. It's an open group to anyone who wants to come and find out more, and anyone will be welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you.
You're very welcome. Any questions? Any last questions before we wrap up for the day? Can't believe half an hour's flown.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, if you have any questions during the week, then please feel free to get in touch. You've got my details on LinkedIn. So what I was planning on doing next week is what did I say? I've got it written down here, is to talk more about the positive side of people who have Asperger syndrome, the positive traits. And so the next few weeks I'm going to be talking about that. But if anything pops up questions wise, we can always drop in and talk about those things as well. So the next few weeks, I think it's good to start off on a positive. I mean, we all have our challenges. I think we all know and we understand, we recognize that, but they shouldn't limit us to what we do. I think it's part of what I want to do here is to encourage people to be more broad-minded and open-minded, to say, okay, this person has Asperger's, or they have another neurodiverse condition, but how can we help them get the best out of themselves? And once we have that conversation with others and we realize, hey, you're good at that, you can do that, I didn't know that. You're good at, I mean, I wouldn't have known that you speak Italian and Chinese, Laura. So, you know, let's be a little more open about what we can do and be proud of what we can do. And I think it's one of the things I want to try and help the group with. So thank you very much for coming along. It's been great to see you. And if anyone else if there's no other questions, then I'm going to wrap up and say, okay, I will see you next week. Thank you very much indeed. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
And you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.